Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:03 p.m. and the date is Tuesday, May 14, 2019. At this point, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates. The alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Mr. Ed Baum, Ms. Lisa Carson, Mr. John Goodekanst, and the alternate Mr. Aaron Thomas will be a voting member tonight. I am John Golsey, the chair. Also present are the zoning or acting zoning administrator, Mr. Lance Ellison, and Secretary, Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. Thank you.
There is only one case tonight on the agenda, and that's the property at 115 Carriage Hill Drive. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. This is case number 1904V, and the property is at 115 Carriage Hill Drive. Zone is R3. RVC Architects are the appellants. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 2310 Table B Office Street parking requirements to allow construction of a clubhouse building to an apartment complex with 468 parking spaces, where 856 parking spaces are the minimum requirement. Mr. Rischenbacher, anything you would like to add?
Well, just a little background. As you may remember, Carriage Hill had a fire a little while back, and they lost one entire apartment building, Building 12. Rather than rebuild that, they wanted to build this clubhouse or recreation center, whatever you wanted to call it, on the same spot where Building 12 was. But because of 230602A, it's a change. And even though it's a change where they're going to have 30 fewer apartments, it's still a change. So they have to meet the requirements, the current requirements for parking. Obviously, when Carriage Hill, now Campus Heights, when it was first built, it was under the old parking laws of one space per apartment. Since then, obviously, it's changed to one space per person. Thus, the number of 856 that's required. But like I said, it's going to have 30 fewer apartments than it did before.
I thought there was 2 fires in there, 2 different times. And the one that this last one that burned was somewhere in the middle, not way up at the top, because I could see it from my window a mile away.
If there was, it didn't affect an entire building.
Okay. Okay. So this clubhouse is going to be right at the same spot.
The same spot as Building 12 was.
Okay. All right. Any questions for the code office? Okay, Pelham, you may come to the board, to the podium, state your name and your address for the records and your case.
My name is Jeremy Bittinger. I'm an architect at RVC Architects. Our office is at 131 West State Street in Athens. My personal residence is 8347 Lavelle Road, Athens. As was stated, we're not, with the building that we are building, we're not really adding to the parking load, but I understand because of the change of use, that would be the requirement. The practical difficulty is the fact that the site, overall on the site of Campus Heights, there's not much room to build more parking lots. A lot of this site is sloped, and there's just not practical room to get driveways in and out and add especially 388 additional parking spaces. It's not a new complex. It's been there for at least 40 years. They've never had issues with parking before. I don't think they've ever had to turn people away with their vehicles. The parking lot is never full that I've seen, and I've been there. I've started working on this project over a year ago. It was January of last year that I started working on the project. There's always been ample parking available. I don't know, I mean, I can read through some of these other arguments if you want me to, but if you have any questions, or if there's anything specific you want me to answer, I can answer questions about the project. So.
Well, I have a few questions, but I want the board members to go first. Mr.
How many bedrooms are there currently in the complex?
I don't really know. I have never done a full evaluation of the entire property because I was not working with the whole thing.
How would you know how many parking spaces are needed?
I don't doubt. Excuse me. I don't doubt that the number that he has is relatively accurate, if not exactly.
There's 856 bedrooms. That's why the number.
So there are 856 bedrooms. Okay.
Yeah.
We know the number of apartments, but they're a mixture of studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. That I've never gone through and actually counted them.
And the second question I have, the same number of parking spaces available now are the number that were available before the fire?
Correct. Yeah, we've not decreased the number of parking spaces at all.
Okay, but you didn't decrease either?
We did not decrease, no. No.
Yeah, question, was that the number of rooms available minus building 12 or with building 12, the building that burnt down?
Minus building 12.
No.
Any other questions?
Yeah, are you guys gonna do anything with the playground next door to that?
We're not
No.
demolishing the playground or removing the playground. We don't know, the owners of Campus Heights, the building that we're building is nowhere as large as the building that burnt down. So there's a little bit of space beside this new building. They've talked about expanding, they have a community garden up there. They thought about maybe expanding the community garden, or maybe that might be another place to put another playground in the future, but we haven't really talked about developing that yet. But they're not taking away any of the adjacent playground that's just above the mailboxes and stuff there. And I will say also, we named the project a clubhouse, but there are 3 different uses that are actually going to take place in this building. They're going to move their leasing office. It's currently across the parking lot, and it's not handicap accessible. So now their new leasing office and their business office is going to be in this building, and that's actually the majority of the building. There is going to be a small fitness center. I think it's sized to hold maybe 20 or 25 people. It's not a large fitness center. There is a small study room that's available to students.
Laundry room?
There, and then, yes, that's the third major use, is this property is divided between student housing and HUD housing. And part of their HUD contract requirements is that they have to rebuild the laundromat that was destroyed in the building that was burned down. So about a quarter, maybe just a little less than a quarter of the building is replacing the laundromat that was destroyed in the fire.
Okay.
So it's not true, it's not entirely a clubhouse. It's not going to be a big party house or anything like that. It's a big difference.
Any other questions? Okay. First of all, you are changing the name to, what is it, Campus Heights Apartments?
The owners that bought it changed the name when they
Okay.
purchased it. Now,
And-
the drive is still, the city of Athens isn't going to change the name of the street. So it's
Right,
still
right.
Carriage Hill Drive,
Right.
but it's Campus Heights is the name of the
Okay.
complex now.
And then there's not going to be any renovation on any of the buildings. It's just going to be just the,
This project is just the clubhouse. They are talking about doing some renovations. I think there's been some deferred maintenance over the years
Okay.
from past owners, so they are looking at doing some things, but I'm sorry?
Maintenance only.
Maintenance. At this point, it's maintenance
Okay,
only, but they
because
may
any-
look in the future at doing renovations. I don't know that yet.
okay, because any new renovation may again come back to the parking space.
Sure.
So this is purely for the benefit of the residents over there, right? Just to go to
Correct.
enjoy the
Yep.
facility. There will be no other changes. I want to get everything on the record, so there would be no other changes.
Correct.
In terms of the number of tenants, in the mix of a student and family, whatever you have now is going to continue.
Right,
Okay.
yes. They actually have they've separated the property out, so they have, because of the legalities of the HUD contracts that they have, so they have a separate piece where the HUD units are, and then the student apartments are separate.
And this
But
facility
there's no change in the proportion or anything of the.
and this facility is not going to increase the rent or or ask for a fee to use it? It's going to be?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay. And then are you going to dedicate some parking spaces for just this facility for somebody who wants to drive or walk? Would be hard to walk all the way from the bottom to the top.
So again, as was stated before, we haven't taken away any parking spaces. So all of the parking that was in front of Building 12 when it burned, all of those spaces are still there.
Okay.
The only thing we did do is we made a dedicated handicap parking space in front of the building. Again,
Okay.
this building is accessible where the old leasing office is not. So that we did add, and so that might have taken away one parking space just because of the size and the area you need for a handicap space.
Okay.
One more. There's a fleet of brand-new cars up there. They look like, are they rental cars or something? Is that a business?
That's something the
right in
new
front of
owners did, and I don't know if that's open to student use. But they are. It's electric vehicles. They have they put in charging stations there, and I'm not. I don't know
Say
if that's...
fleet, they were like 5 or 6.
Yeah, there were maybe, 6 cars, something like that. But they have the charging stations there, and I don't know if it's like the scooters that we've been talking about recently in Athens, if somebody can take this car and use it and then bring it back. I don't know if they're charged per mile or something like that. I don't really know. Or maybe even people on the site itself. I'm not sure. They did that outside of the part of this project too, but...
When did the sale take place?
Like I said, I was brought on board by the new owners in January of last year, so I don't know if it was maybe December, the fall of the previous year, maybe right towards the end of 2017. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I did some work for Wallach that was the previous owner too. I don't know when exactly the change happened. I just know that I started working on this specific project in January of last year.
Thanks.
Okay, you may be seated for now, and then we may ask you again some questions. Mr. Eschenbacher, there are some other facilities like this on Richland Avenue in the vicinity. Are they have similar, do they all meet all the parking requirements?
University Courtyard does, as far as we know, right?
I know
As far
Coates
as we
Front
know, although
doesn't.
they are building apartments there that might require them to get more parking. If you remember in
Coates Run,
2013, 2012 and 2013, Summit at Coates Run, they originally asked for a variance to have fewer parking spaces, and the board turned them down because they had a slip in the back which took out some of their parking spaces. So they came back again with another variance request to have slightly fewer spaces and have some of those be smaller than what's required, and that got passed. That's it for as far as Richland Avenue apartment complexes and variances. So,
okay, thank you, sir. This is like one of those cases that we have been kind of lately discussing, where the property owner is trying to add some facility or provide some something that is going to be beneficial to the residents, and then they fall into this rule of like getting all the parking spaces and so on. And hopefully someday we will address that. So anybody has any other comments? Mr. Baum? No?
Nope.
We need a motion.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance from ACC 2310 Table B off-street parking requirements to allow construction of a clubhouse building to an apartment complex with 468 parking spaces, where 856 parking spaces are the minimum requirement.
Second. Oh,
Okay, Lisa, second. Can I make a motion that we suspend the rules and just go to the voting? Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor of suspending the rules and just go directly to the voting?
Aye.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. In this case of 1904V for this 115 Carriage Hill Drive, all in favor of granting the variance, please raise your hand. All opposed? You got your variance. And the last item on the agenda is disposition of minutes from March 12, 2019. I believe all of us except for you, Aaron, you were not here, but Ed, Lisa, and John and myself can vote. Have you read the minutes of April of, it was March 12, 2019.
Okay. I move to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2019.
Okay, do we have a second? All in favor? Okay. And that's it. The meeting is adjourned.
I do have one question. When